The world that you and I live in sometimes sucks. It can be hurtful, intimidating, and at times kind of boring. This makes video games with worlds unlike our own extremely appealing to those of us that sometimes need an escape from reality. The Neverhood is a PC game from 1996, and its world is very good at being an escape because it's so unique. However, it's also kind of horrifying. There's something really uncanny and almost disturbing about the world of the Neverhood, but it's not a horror game at all. In fact, it's actually kind of the opposite. It's a goofy slapstick cartoonish allegory that ultimately aims to be wholesome. So why does it scare some people? Well, for one, sometimes when we were younger, our little child brains found things scary that aren't. I think we all have at least one game that wasn't intentionally scary that used to scare us. On the other hand, the Neverhood has some very strange visuals, and even the opening screen has an ominous laugh, and that's scary. I mean, it was to me when I was a kid anyway. Now I'm big and strong and brave and can play quality horror games like Stray Souls. So how did a game as unsettling and silly as The Neverhood come to be? The Neverhood was published by DreamWorks Interactive, founded by none other than Steven Spielberg. Spielberg and the rest of the studio were seeking innovative concepts for games to publish. This is where Doug TenNapel, the creator of Earthworm Jim, pitched a long-running passion project idea he had for a unique world made entirely out of clay. In addition to the distinctive style that would set it apart from pretty much any other game being pitched, it was accompanied by a story that is really pretty unconventional. Spielberg apparently liked the idea and approved it for production. The game's characters and sets famously used over 3 tons of clay to create. Everything was painstakingly handcrafted and hand-animated via stop motion, frame by frame, over tens of thousands of photos. Imagine not only having to sculpt and build everything in sight, but also having to pose a clay puppet enough times to fill 15 frames per second for the entire length of a video game. Thousands of years ago, back when I was in school, I attempted to make the protagonists of the Neverhood claymen, and immediately gave up when I realized that hands are difficult. So yeah, major props to these artists. Speaking of games with handcrafted art, let's have a quick word from the awesome sponsor of this video. You know, playing through the Neverhood reminds me of something I really miss in modern games, a sense of craft. Every frame feels like it was physically shaped by hand, and you don't really see that kind of dedication often anymore. Funnily enough, I recently found a game that scratches a very similar itch in a different way. It's called ACEANDTJ Sky Hero. It draws from classic 1930s rubber hose animation. You know, the looping limbs, exaggerated faces, the surreal bounce in every movement. The result feels like you're playing inside of an old cartoon short, but with modern gameplay design layered on top. Personally, I think it's always nice to see games that showcase good-looking animation and stylization. Plus, for even more old-timey animation goodness, there's going to be a Tom and Jerry crossover. But ACEANDTJ Sky Hero isn't just good-looking. What really hooked me is how it nails that arcade feeling that a lot of us miss. It's a bullet hell style game that provides intense 5-minute rounds to play through. For me, 5 minutes is the perfect length for a little break, but the gameplay is also engaging enough to play for much longer if you have the time. You're fighting multiple bosses back to back, each with their own bullet patterns that escalate fast, and once you start, you could lose hours without noticing. There's also a really cool mechanic that stood out to me. Instead of just dodging, you can absorb pink bullets and fire them back. It reminds me a little bit of parrying in a fighting game. It can be risky, but if you nail it, you completely flip the fight in your favor. It gives skilled players a way to shorten runs dramatically, and honestly, that's the kind of risk-reward design I love to see. My favorite feature of the game is the 2-player co-op mode. If you want to relive the nostalgia of getting your butt kicked at the arcade with your best bro without needing to have a zillion quarters on hand, or, finding an arcade that's still around, this game might just be for you. It recreates that shoulder-to-shoulder chaos. 2 players dodging, countering, and inevitably yelling at each other when things go wrong. So if you like games that don't just look retro, but also play like the classics we grew up on, check out ACEANDTJ Sky Hero. Below in the description and pinned comment, you'll see a link or QR code to download the game. There will be launch celebration rewards in-game, so now is the perfect time to check it out. Let's fly together, laugh together, and play together in ACEANDTJ Sky Hero. When you install the game, you're greeted by this little fellow with a hoop on his head waving at you. This is Willy Trombone. Willy is, in a way, your guide through the Neverhood, and also the readme file that comes with the game, which is kind of cute. And this guy sleeping on the ground is Clayman. Clayman wakes up in a strange room in a world made entirely of clay. This world is very interactive, and after solving a few puzzles, Clayman finds himself outside. The The world outside is eerie and honestly kind of horrifying. The whole place kind of resembles an odd little town, but there's nobody in it. Even the sky is completely empty. There's no sun, no moon, no stars, no clouds, just a pitch black void. However, there is kind of at least one person around. Periodically, Clayman will receive letters from Willie Trombone. Some of these letters are very strange. Hang me from a tree by my hoop so that I can play Absalom. Absalom is a character in the Bible that was famously killed by riding his mule beneath a tree where his glorious, beautiful man hair became entangled in the branches. This is the first clue that the Neverhood story might not be what one might expect of a random claymation point-and-click video game. You might not even have an expectation, and I still feel like it might surprise you. You can just keep clicking on the mailbox over and over. Most of the other letters you'll receive from Willie are hints for puzzles, or just some kind of silly comedic relief. One of the Neverhood's running gags is repetition. The more you do something, the more of a reaction you tend to get. If you endlessly click, eventually Willie will send you things like, send this letter to 3 friends or you will fall ill. Or, if you throw this away, I'll think less of you. Eventually, Willie will start berating you for reading too much. Too darn much. This works for me. As a WoW player, I find clicking the same thing over and over very entertaining.
Greetings. Forget something? I'm kind of busy. Quit it. What's your problem? Knock it off. You're getting on my nerves.
As Clayman explores the unpopulated world, he spots a tree with some fruit growing on it. You can continue doing this over and over and over and over again. I'm telling you, this game really likes making you click things a billion times. Every time Clayman eats a fruit, the belching goes on longer, up to a full minute. Okay, you get it. This area also introduces us to another form of humor that the game really enjoys. Slapstick. Clayman finds a rickety old jack-in-the-box, but it's kinda busted and doesn't work very well. This big green monster teaches us an invaluable lesson about the Neverhood. Apparently, Clayman does not die very easily. To deal with the beast, Clayman shoves a large amount of TNT into it. This causes an explosion strong enough to fling bits of the monster all the way over to wherever it is Willie Trombone is hanging out. The Neverhood rarely has any dialogue, and engaging with it mostly consists of exploration and figuring out puzzles to get from point A to point B. There's even a slide puzzle, and you all know how I feel about slide puzzles. The Neverhood is deliberately empty, and there simply aren't any other characters populating the area for Clayman to interact with. Well, aside from Willie, but never directly. Instead, the game chooses to convey most of the story through discs that Clayman finds.
Hello? Me Willie. Me Willie Trombone. These discs tell a story. Story about good. Story about bad. These discs are all that are left of the true story. True story of the closing of the Third Age. Willie know that once you know this truth, then you know what to do. Listen, I tell you.
The story is left a bit mysterious in that it's revealed to you bit by bit as you locate the discs. However, there is one more way that the Neverhood tells you a story: the Hall of Records. If you have ever played this game for yourself, you will definitely remember this segment. The Hall of Records is a very, very long hallway, kinda like Final Fantasy XIII. Funny. Going from one end to the other in the Hall of Records takes approximately 10 minutes to walk through if you don't read anything. You see the text on the wall? All of this text, the entire hallway, is in fact readable. It is massively dense, very detailed Neverhood lore. If you actually sit down and read literally every word of it, it takes a decent chunk of time. I'll go over some of it after the main story because it actually makes more sense that way, but for right this moment, let me tell you about the preamble. The preamble tells us all about the Hall of Records itself. These clay walls auto-write the history and activities of the 7 sons of Quater. Quater is a being that was created by Father. The walls describe Father as a kind being whom no one has ever seen and who is beyond our comprehension. Father existed before anything else ever existed. Father resides on, quote, the other side, and no one can get to the other side but through death. Very obviously, Father is meant to portray God. Quater is the only being directly made by Father. Quater lived with his creator for many eons before leaving to create his own world where he could act as a go-between for the creations and Father. This, combined with Willie's Absalom letter, are starting to paint a picture here that a lot of the Neverhood is biblical allegory and references. On the wall, Quater writes, "In each of our lives, we must make decisions. When these times come, be ready to make the right choices. Continue in what you know is true, though truth is often hard to see." The prevailing theme of the Neverhood throughout its entire story is free will, the choice between good and bad. At the very end of the Hall of Records is another disc, which means we get another part of the story.
It all starts with Hoborg, a being who had to create because he had to. He make a world full of beauty and wonder. This world, the Neverhood, a world where he could live forever and evermore. Hoborg thought this world would make him happy, but it make him sad. Walking around his big, beautiful new world make him feel all alone.
One of the buildings in the Neverhood that really stands out to me is the Aqua Building. To get inside, Clayman has to spit water into pipes to replicate the doorbell's sound. If you're like me and bad at sound/music puzzles, this is kind of a pain in the ass. But that isn't why this building stands out to me. The inside of the building is kind of horrifying. Or, well, at least it was to me when I was little.
Hey, Clayman! Say knock knock.
This game has been a clay world with a pitch black void of a sky and not another character in sight that Clayman can interact with face to face. Why is this guy here? Where is everyone else? Why is he mocking Clayman by saying knock knock just past a door that was very not knock knock easy to open? Why does he watch my every move? Another thing I always used to find really unsettling about the tone of this game is how doing random mundane tasks can unpredictably cause something very weird or gross to happen. You never know when that kind of thing is going to happen, and on top of that, the game has you in such an isolated and lonely feeling world. It just is so unpredictable and strange that I don't know, it feels really uncanny and it's very weird to experience. When I used to play this as a kid, certain areas were so scary to me that I'd have to hype myself up to explore them. For example, this pitch black cave. One of the more strange contraptions Clayman comes across is a large, powerful cannon. Who the hell built this and why is it here? Firing this cannon accidentally plugs up a waterfall hole and drains out a portion of the Neverhood, making it now accessible to explore. Getting down to the bottom of the lake, however, is, well... At the bottom is a very large drain. You remember earlier when Clayman got his head chopped off and it was totally fine? Well, there are numerous signs around this drain. Danger! Don't jump in the drain. You will die. You really actually die, and you really get an end credits screen. That's fun. Another thing Clayman can observe in the lake bottom is a sign that says, "The Cannon Monument." This cannon was put here by Hoborg. Hoborg is then crossed out with the name Clog scribbled over it. You can also adventure and find Willy's home high up on a tower. However, as always, Willy isn't actually present to directly talk to. There's a painting of his father Otto Borg on the wall. If you want to, you could remember that name for later when we go over the Hall of Records a bit more. Otto Borg will be present. My personal favorite building in the game is also found in the lake bed, the glorious radio tower. This is my favorite area because the songs and sounds that come out of the radio that you use for the puzzle are completely insane.
Now faster.
Spring has sprung, and spring has hearts a-glowing.
Sound effects record number 32. Man reading. Man relaxing. Woman in outer space. Man watching television with volume at 0. Freeway sound from 20 miles away. A mime and his audience. Dead insect. A swarm of dead insects.
There are honestly a lot of these and they go on for way longer. These are just some of my favorites, but one song reigns supreme. It's called Potatoes, Tomatoes, Gravy, and Peas, and it is a masterpiece.
Potatoes love, my gravy love. Potatoes love, my gravy love. Potatoes love, my gravy love. Tomatoes and potatoes and my peas. Tomatoes and potatoes and my peas. I put them in my hand and I eat them just like that. I put them in my ears and my shoes. I put them in my pants and I do a little dance. There's always things to take away my blues.
I dare you to name a better video game soundtrack. You can't. No, but really, the entire soundtrack is nothing but bangers. In this room, for example, there's a puzzle surrounding the word Bobby that's written on this funky little machine. It is imperative to progression that you notice the word Bobby, so just listen to the soundtrack.
Play a little ping pong, but it's not a break. Play a little ding dong,
Now that's environmental storytelling. You see, the puzzle involves colors. Bobby stands for blue, orange, blue, blue, yellow. It's a fun puzzle. And with all of this puzzle solving and adventuring, Clayman has collected even more discs of the story.
But then, Hoborg get him an idea. He said,
I know. I'll make a friend to enjoy this world with me.
Hoborg happy to have a new friend. He named him Clog and welcome him to the Neverhood.
Everything you see here is yours to enjoy. You and I shall spend all our days here together. With you by my side, I'll make more
Crown!
No! No, Clog. This crown is the only thing that you cannot have. I am ruler of this world, the Neverhood, and a ruler needs his crown. Surely you can understand that. Now go and explore your new home, while I go back to my throne room to plan some more people to make.
So, Hoborg go to make more friends. And Clog start thinking bad things. Sitting in the throne room, Hoborg start thinking about who he make next.
Huh? What? My crown!
If this story sounds a little familiar, it's probably because it's very much referencing the temptation and fall motif of Genesis. Hoborg had a paradise full of life in mind for Clog, but Clog's temptation and stealing of the crown derailed everything. In Clayman's quest to continue seeking out the story of Hoborg, he eventually comes to notice that the Neverhood has been split in two. Part of the land is anchored to a floating island, so he removes the chain holding them together and reconnects the pieces. An angry little fella appears and scowls at Clayman's interference. One thing I really like about the Neverhood is that something weird is always going on. Even just moving from one area to another is always shenanigans. Another machine Clayman can find in the Neverhood is a teleporter. This teleporter goes to several locations, but the most mysterious one takes him to an area with an enormous robot longingly raising his arms for a teddy bear that he cannot reach. The robot's name is Big Bill, and to try to help him out, Clayman crawls right into him. Inside of Bill is a switch to turn him from bad to good. Yay, recurring themes of the narrative! Once Bill is set to good, Clayman is able to operate him mecha style and helps him reach the bear. The only problem left to solve is that Bill is still trapped in this weird little walled-off section. Good thing there's a convenient and handy-dandy jump out of hole button in his controls. And then if this whole scene wasn't already strange and surreal enough, it gets much, much stranger. Hey, Clayman finally got to meet Willie Trombone in the flesh. That's nice. But it appears that something is watching all of this happen from afar. If you weren't expecting a mech versus kaiju style battle in this game, you don't get any bonus points. If you did, you get a gold star, but I know that you didn't. The beast for some reason wants Bill's bear, and he releases some quirky little guys to go retrieve it. Just like that, Willie and Bill are gone. This is the second saddest robot death on this channel. However, thankfully Bill did open up a new area, the final area of the game. With a bit more exploration and puzzles out of the way, Clayman finally collects the last of the story discs.
Yow! Sheesh! My, this baby packs a wallop. What's this? Frozen solid. It seems this crown does more than give you reign over the Neverhood. It's also your secret to life. What a pity.
Glug right about that. Without his crown, Hoborg's stuck in a big, helpless sleep. Ooh, that clog scare me. Things look icky, but maybe hope. Maybe a life seed. Hoborg boo-boo with Clog. Clog go all stinky bad. But Willie know what to do. Yes. Ooh, me hope Clog no find out about this. Scary. Happy birthday! If you watching this, then you do good. Really happy. Now you need this. Go do more good. And look out for bad. Really know bad is always where you forget to look. Bye!
Somehow, the recording of Willy breaks the fourth wall and throws the final key that Clayman needs out of the video screen. I'd like to really quick point out that the final room of the game is a really cool looking version of the very first room Clayman wakes up in. And the puzzle is designed to make you think it's the same as the first puzzle, but the solution is different, and I think that's a cool design choice. It's got that same feeling as playing a game you really like when you notice that the next and final mission is the title of the game. With Clayman's only real two friends, yeah, we're not counting the freaky-ass TV guy, gone, and the entire Neverhood explored, the only thing left for him is to confront the evil, crown-stealing Clog.
I'm sorry. Did I frighten you? My name is Clog. Everything you see here is mine to do with as I so desire. And I desire for all of this to be yours to rule. All you have to do is wear the adornment of a king. Yes, the Neverhood crown. You know where this baby goes, so let us make our decision, shall we?
Clog allows Clayman to choose his path. From here, the Neverhood has a literal good ending and bad ending. Clayman can choose to wear the crown or return it to Hoborg.
Yes! Yes! He bought it! I win! I am the ruler of this world now.
Personally, I enjoy the bad ending because Clog getting decked in the face is very funny, but the good ending does have quite a bit more content.
What? What? I know what you're thinking, and you can forget it.
What the? I promise you will regret this! You are toying with forces for which you know nothing about! Clayman, no!
Asleep so long. Who woke me? What is your name?
Clayman.
Clayman. Yes, of course. Well, stand up, friend. You saved this world and...
Die, you old fool! Son of a...
You know, I never really understood that guy. Come on, Clayman. We've got a Neverhood to finish.
Hoborg takes Clayman to the center of the Neverhood and gets to work on finishing what he started before Clog took his crown. Hours and hours pass as Hoborg works to create enough clay people to inhabit his once eerily empty world.
Clayman, wake up!
Hoborg acknowledges Clayman's free will and appreciates that he chose to do the right thing by returning the crown rather than taking the power for himself. All of his newly created friends thank him for his selfless decision.
It is now time to goof off. things are good.
Oh, thank God Willie and Bill are okay. And that's the story of the Neverhood. Well, for the most part anyway, there's still the Hall of Records to talk about. Like I mentioned before, most of the lore found there actually makes a lot more sense after seeing everything in the game. Again, it's quite dense, so I'm just going to bring up the really fun or interesting parts with a link down below if anyone is interested in reading the entire thing for some reason. Much like the main story, most of the Hall of Records is biblical allegory in some way. Just as a disclaimer, I myself am not personally religious, but I do find Bible stories fascinating since I grew up with them. If you recall, the preamble of the Hall of Records told us about the hall itself and the story of a character named Quater. The rest of the chapters on the walls describe Quater's 7 sons, all of whom he made crowns for. These crowns allowed all of them the power of creation. The son most prominent in the story is obviously Hoborg. Very long story short, Hoborg left Quater to find the purest, highest quality clay to create his world. Quater told him where he could find it. He traveled very long and very far, and the journey nearly broke him. Yet again, another couple of parallels to the Bible. After 20 years of travel, Hoborg became very lonely and tired. He stopped on a chunk of world that had a spindly vine for shade. A worm ate the vine, and he awoke the next morning and suffered beneath the overwhelmingly hot sun. The worm tries to convince Hoborg that the clay Quater told him about probably doesn't even exist. Hoborg doubts his creator and attempts to make a living being out of the dirt he sat on. The being was alive, but it was weird and freaky and it scared him, so he cast it into space hoping that it would die, which is kind of dark, but okay. Eventually, Hoborg sees Willie and Bill float by. Seeing a solution to his loneliness, Hoborg pulled off his belt to make a lasso to catch the piece of land before it drifted away forever. The belt wasn't long enough to reach, so in desperation he gouged a hole in his chest to use his innards to reach Willie. Upon seeing the grave injury, Willie pulls off his own belt to hold Hoborg together. The trio become really good friends and eventually find the high-quality clay to create the Everhood, a neighborhood that would last forever. You see, the game is called the Neverhood because of Clog. The next son of Quater is Ogdilla. Ogdilla is a giant blue gas cloud that floats through space picking up particles. Over time, these particles became sentient and had a big giant war upon his back. The detailed description of this war is quite girthy. The next son is Bert Bert. Bert Bert looks like a fucked up Pringles man. His story is one of the longest and most unreadable. This is because it's a parody of books of the Bible that are full of dense lineage like Genesis and Numbers. It also includes a strange retelling of Joseph in the Coat of Many Colors, but instead it's a character named Klee that gets shorts. The next son is Numeron, who physically is a pile of cubes. Numeron's story is more dense lineage text and a few other Bible allegories like a version of Sodom and Gomorrah, Noah and the Flood, and the Exodus. The next is Autoborg. Autoborg is actually really important. Autoborg is Willie's father. He created 3 robots. The only one of these robots we ever get to see is Bill. Autoborg also had 7 sons of his own. Autoborg had created houses on his world for all of his sons, but he forgot to hold the world together with gravity, so one day the world broke apart and scattered all of them and their homes across space. A lot of Autoborg's sons have weirdly depressing stories. For example, all of his sons were identifiable by the loops on top of their heads. One son, named Petri, one day was so tired of his hoop getting hooked onto things that he cut off his own head. Unlike Clayman, this proved to be fatal for him. Then there's the sad story of Hypen Nupin. Hypen Nupin's house got caught in the tail of a comet. This comet had passed through a part of space that had a lot of plant life and was full of seeds. Hypen Nupin became obsessed with these seeds and dedicated his life to nurturing them into flowers. This was fitting because he was the only one of the sons that had a nose. His dream was to become the king of flowers with no rival that could possibly match his expertise. He actually had never met anyone else that grew flowers, but he constantly pushed himself to the brink to be better than anyone else could ever possibly be. As his comet passed by other worlds, his imagination went wild and he came up with made-up rivals that were doing better than him. For years, he floated along in space tending to these flowers, and if any other type of plant but a flower were to pop up, he would shred it in a rage. The land strained itself, trying to produce more and more flowers year after year to try and please Hypen Nupin. But no matter how many flowers grew, he was never satisfied. He always pushed harder and wanted more. Eventually, the land turned barren and gray, and all of his beloved flowers began to decay. He desperately tried to tend to the final few flowers that poked out of the depleted world's dust, but When the final flower died, so did Hype and Nupin. This little story kind of made me sad. It's a good allegory for perfectionism and how sometimes we push ourselves way too hard while fighting against imagined pressure. Pushing too hard in the pursuit of perfection can ultimately be damaging. I think it might also be a biblical parallel like everything else in this story. I'm already rambling, so I won't get into it, but it sounds a lot like Ecclesiastes 2. Another of Otto Borg's sons ended up inside the gas cloud of Ogdilla and witnessed the particle war. One son spun off to space alone for all eternity, and of course there's what happened to Willie. The next son of Quater is named Homan, and his story involves another kind of boring chronicle of a war. And finally, Arvin. Arvin created a world called Idsnack, which is home to the Skull Monkeys shown in the Neverhood sequel. And that is a very short, vague description of the Hall of Records. Overall, I obviously really like this game despite the fact that it used to scare me. I absolutely adore the art style and all of the hard work that was put into animating it. The soundtrack is one of the strangest and most memorable of pretty much any game to me. Some of the puzzles are a little bit frustrating, but overall I think the game is pretty fun. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you're able to, leaving a like and comment really helps the channel out a lot. I also have a Ko-fi linked down below if you're feeling generous.
Propane is love, my gravy love. Propane is love, my gravy love. Propane is love, my gravy love. Ladies and potatoes and potatoes.